A father carries wood up a hill. His son walks beside him, asking where the lamb is. The father does not answer. He already knows. 3 days of walking, and not once does the text tell us what this man felt. Not a single word about his heart racing. Not a hint of tears. Just verbs. He rose. He took. He bound. As if his hands moved on their own, pulled by something stronger than him. But to make sense of that silence, we need to go back to the command itself. A voice breaks through the dark. It calls his name twice. Abraham, Abraham. And then it asks for the thing no parent can give. Take your son, your only one, the one you love. Go to a place I will show you, and offer him there as a burnt gift. Notice the way the words stack. Your son, your only one, the one you love. Each phrase tightens the grip. It is not enough to say, Yanayan, your child. The voice names what will be lost layer by layer, as if peeling skin from a wound. Now here is what most people miss. Nearly half the verbs in this passage are commands. Not wishes, not requests. Orders. The grammar itself strips away choice. Abraham's lines have no inner voice. No kin he thought, or ni he wondered. The text treats him like a body in motion, not a mind in conflict. And that creates a strange kind of horror, because we know he is human. We know he loves this boy. But the story refuses to show us that love in words. It shows us only the walk, the wood, and the knife. You are 3 days into a desert trail. The sun presses on your skull. Your son keeps pace beside you, trusting you the way only a child can. And in your hand, tucked beneath the fire pot, sits a blade you have not yet explained. What do you feel? The text will not say. And that gap, that space where emotion should be, is the most brutal part of the whole story. It forces you to fill it yourself. But something else is hiding in this passage, something scholars argued over for centuries. The voice that gives the command uses one name for God. The voice that stops the blade uses a different one. Early readers notice this. The name shifts. And that shift tells us the story was stitched together from at least 2 older sources, like a quilt made from different cloth. One source uses the older, personal name for God, the name tied to promise. The other uses the broader, more distant word, the one that simply means Fondihu, the divine. When you read the passage front to back, the seams are nearly hidden. But once you spot them, you cannot unsee them. It means this story was told in more than one version, by more than one group, long before anyone wrote it down. Each group brought its own lens. One focused on obedience, the other stressed mercy. And some later hand wove them together into the story we have now. Which raises a harder question. If the story was shaped by editors, does that weaken its power? Or does it prove that the tension at its core was so real, so urgent, that many groups felt the need to tell it? Think about that for a moment. Different traditions, all circling the same impossible scene. A father, a son, a blade. As if they were drawn to this moment the way moths are drawn to flame. Now the blade is raised. Abraham's arm is high. And here the story does something it has not done since the opening line. It slows down. A voice calls again, Abraham, Abraham. The double name, just like before. But this time the message is reversed. Do not stretch your hand toward the boy. Do not do a thing to him. And then, behind Abraham, caught in a thicket by its horns, a ram appears. This is not a small detail. This is the hinge of the whole story. Because in that single moment, the tale shifts from death to something else. Not just mercy, something more precise. The word used for what God does here appears only twice in the entire Hebrew text. It is rare on purpose. It signals that this was not a backup plan. It was the plan. The ram was always meant to be there. The test was never about the boy's death. It was about whether Abraham would walk far enough into the dark to find what was waiting on the other side. And here is what changes everything. That single act, one life standing in for another, became the seed of an entire system. Centuries later, priests in Jerusalem would lay their hands on a goat's head, press the weight of a people's wrongs into the animal, and send it out into the wild. The Day of Atonement. The root word for non-nine, atonin, runs all through the book that lays out those rituals. But the idea did not begin in that later book. It began here, on this hill, with a ram caught by its horns. Still, there is a problem with reading this story only through the lens of mercy. Because if the test was always designed to end with the ram, then was it really a test? If God never meant for Isaac to die, then what exactly was being measured? The obvious answer is faith. Abraham trusted, so God rewarded him. And that reading is not wrong, but it misses something key. The test does not ask Abraham to believe something. It asks him to do something, to walk for 3 days toward an act that goes against every moral instinct a parent has. The test is not about what you think. It is about what you are willing to lose. A thinker in the 1800s gave this idea a name. He called it a leap beyond normal ethics, a moment where the rules that govern daily life are put on hold by something higher. He saw Abraham as the ultimate figure of faith, not because Abraham was certain, but because Abraham kept walking without certainty. Now, most people today reject that idea. When asked, most philosophy students say they would refuse to obey such a command, even if they believed it came from God. They draw the line at conscience, and you can feel the weight of that pushback. It is the voice inside you that says no order, no matter where it comes from, can override the duty to protect your child. And they have a point. If you remove the divine element, the story becomes a horror. A man walks his son up a hill to kill him. Full stop. No amount of theology changes the shape of that act when viewed from the boy's side. Which brings us to Isaac. Most people picture a small child, helpless and afraid. But the Hebrew word used to describe him does not clearly mean not child. It can refer to a young man, even a teenager. Some traditions place him as old enough to fight back, old enough to choose. If Isaac was not helpless, then his silence takes on a different meaning. He asks one question, "Where is the lamb?" Abraham answers, "God will provide." And then Isaac says nothing more. He lets himself be bound. He lies down on the wood. Is that giving in? Trust? Shock? The text does not say. But if Isaac was old enough to resist and chose not to, then the story has 2 acts of faith, not one. Father and son both walking into the dark. And here is where the traditions split apart in a way most people never learn. In Jewish and Christian readings, the son on the altar is Isaac, always Isaac. The rabbis wrote long, detailed stories about what Isaac saw, what he felt, how his soul briefly left his body and returned. Church teachers in the early centuries used this scene as a mirror for a later sacrifice, seeing in the bound son a shadow of what was to come. But in the earliest Islamic writings, the son is not Isaac. He is Ishmael. The Quran itself does not name the boy. It leaves a gap, and into that gap, scholars poured their own claims, linking the story to Arab roots, to the founding of Mecca, to a different line of promise. 3 faiths, 1 hill, 3 different boys lying on the wood, and each version tells you less about what happened and more about who is telling the story. That is the real power of this scene. It is a mirror. Each tradition sees in it what it most needs to see: obedience, mercy, sacrifice, identity. But there is one angle that rarely gets attention. What does this moment do to the bond between father and son? Modern trauma research tells us that when a child witnesses a parent's intent to harm, even if the harm never lands, the trust fracture runs deep. The part of the brain that handles fear lights up in ways that linger for years. Children exposed to extreme moral stress show far higher anxiety than those who were not. Now, applying modern science to an ancient text is risky. These frameworks were built for living people, not literary figures. And we should be honest about that limit. The story is not a case study. It is a drama. But the fact that it triggers the same gut response in readers today, thousands of years later, tells us something about how deeply it touches the wiring of the human bond between parent and child. And the story seems to know this. Because after the ram, after the voice, after the fire dies down, Abraham and Isaac walk back down the hill. Together, yes, but the text never again shows them speaking to each other. Not once! Whatever happened on that altar, the silence after it is louder than the command that started it. Some traditions tried to fill that silence. One rabbi wrote that Isaac's eyes were damaged by the tears of angels falling into them. Another said Abraham's hair turned white in a single hour. These are not facts. They are the work of groups that could not bear the silence and had to give it a voice. So what are we left with? A story that refuses to be simple. A father who obeys without speaking. A son who submits without fighting. A blade that stops in midair. A ram that appears from nowhere. And three great faiths that cannot agree on who was lying on the wood. The story has been painted hundreds of times across thousands of years, from mosaics in Roman villas to panels in modern graphic novels. Every Rosh Hashanah, the ram's horn is blown. And one of the reasons is to recall this moment, to echo the sound of that caught animal, to remind a community that mercy arrived at the last breath. Every story has a next chapter. If this one held you, the next tale waiting on this channel goes even deeper into the roots of mercy and cost. Subscribe so you do not miss it. The wood is still warm, the rope is untied, and somewhere in a thicket, the ram waits, as it has always waited, for someone brave enough to walk far enough to find it.